Last Sunday, Palestinian terrorists killed 2 Israeli brothers as they were driving through Huwara, a town in the West Bank. When will it stop? Hallel Yaniv was 21 and his younger brother Yagel Yaniv was 19. Both were residents of a West Bank settlement called Har. Hours later, dozens of Israeli settlers rioted in Huwara. They attacked Palestinians and set several cars and homes on fire. A 37-year-old Palestinian man, Sameh Akdash, was killed, and 4 other Palestinians were seriously injured. The IDF arrived to help evacuate Palestinian families. It didn't stop there, though. The next day, Elan Ganeles, an Israeli-American who was 27 years old, was killed when a Palestinian terrorist opened fire at his car. He was driving near Jericho in the West Bank, and Elan grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, and he was in Israel to attend a wedding. My heart is bleeding for the loss of Elan, Hallel, and Yagel. Look at them. It's so painful. And I understand the anger. I feel the anger. But the reaction to that anger is never to do what those settlers did. Never. This doesn't represent Zionism, and it can't represent Zionism. Zionists build. Zionists don't destroy. I want to tell you 3 things about Huwara that might get you to think about it in a different way, and maybe can help us think about where to go from here. I'm Noam, and this is Today Unpacked, where we rise above the noise to give you clarity and perspective on what's happening in Israel and the Jewish world. There is so much noise on what happened in Huwara. But wait, before all of this happened, did anyone even know what Huwara is? Even now, when the whole world is talking about this town, does anyone even know anything about it? So I'll tell you about it. Huwara is a Palestinian town in the northern West Bank. It is the site of a notoriously dangerous highway for Israelis, Route 60. Israelis have to take this road to get to and from 4 Israeli settlements, including Har, where Hallel and Yagel were from. There have been several shooting attacks against Israelis on Route 60. In 2017, there were plans to build a safer bypass road, but it didn't happen. Now, Israel's transportation minister has vowed to complete it. Israelis and the Jewish community mourned the losses of Hallel, Yagel, and Elan. Yaniv, the mother of the 2 brothers, said that nothing will fill the hole in her heart.
יש לנו חור ענק בלב. שום דבר לא יסגור את החור הזה. לא בנייה, לא הפגנה, לא שום דבר. החור הזה יישאר. ואנחנו נלמד לחיות איתו.
Elan's mother, Caroline, said that he was the brightest boy in the world. He had never-ending inquisitiveness.
He was such a gift in our life. Our loss is a loss for the world of such an emerging, bright, shiny, brilliant star.
Along with mourning, Israeli leaders also condemned the rioting by the Israeli settlers. Israeli President Isaac Herzog said that violence against innocent people is not our way, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu urged the settlers not to take the law into their own hands. And Benny Gantz tweeted, along with a deep and heavy sorrow for the serious attack, the scenes tonight in Huwara should shame every person and every Jew in particular. This is not our way. And in a move that inspired others and made others a little bit angry, within 24 hours, Israelis had donated over 1 million shekels, nearly $300,000, to help Palestinians whose homes and businesses were destroyed. On Wednesday night, as thousands of Israelis gathered in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv to protest against the government's judicial reform plan, they chanted at police, "Where were you in Huwara?" Meanwhile, on social media, the tributes to the victims came pouring in. The Jewish world also condemned and decried the settlers' attack on Huwara. Many wrote that the settlers who did this are not Zionists and that their actions are not Jewish. Others argued that the Jewish community should look at themselves internally and ask how Jewish schools and institutions could have produced the group of settlers who committed these horrible acts. Meanwhile, Jonathan Tobin, editor-in-chief of JNS, pushed back on this media coverage that implied the settlers' actions reflected a broader trend in Israeli society. He wrote that although critics of Israel portray Jewish settlers in the West Bank as being engaged in a constant campaign of violence against their Arab neighbors, examples of Jews attempting to exact some sort of revenge for terrorism are actually rare. Certainly events on the scale of the riot in Huwara are almost unknown. Yishai Fleischer, spokesperson for the Jewish community of Hebron, wrote that vigilante behavior is generally wrong, but he also suggested that the rioting was a human reaction to Palestinian terrorism and the IDF not doing enough about it. Rabbi Eli Fisher pushed back on this though, writing, "Don't believe those who tell you this is a normal human reaction. The family and community of the victims did not call for this and eschew vigilantism in all its forms." I wholeheartedly agree. The settlers' behavior is not representative in the slightest of the vast majority of Zionists or Israelis, and there is no debate about whether this violence is excusable or not. No matter how angry we feel, acts of violence against people who are innocent are totally inexcusable. There is no place for vigilantism of any kind in Judaism. So where do we go from here? I promised you 3 things that I think can help you see this in maybe a little bit of a different way. So let's rise above the noise with these 3 thoughts. Number 1, in a time of tragedy, focus on how you respond. The WhatsApp status of Hallel Yaniv, who was killed in Huwara, was, "What happened to you is not the story. The story is what you do with what happened to you." The point is this: we don't always have control over the tragedies that happen to us, but we can always choose our next steps. Number 2, let's understand that the rioting is in no way representative of Judaism or Zionism. The purpose of Judaism is to bring justice and righteousness into the world. Hallel, one of the best known sages in the Talmud, said, "That which is hateful to you, do not do to another." That is the entire Torah, and all the rest is commentary. The Torah would never condone this type of behavior. Neither would any of the leaders who built the Zionist movement and the state of Israel, whether it's Theodor Herzl, Zev Jabotinsky, or Achad Ha'am. Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, articulated the purpose of Zionism this way, and listen up: "By these will the state be judged, by the moral character," there you heard it, the moral character, that's right, the moral character it imparts to its citizens, by the human values determining its inner and outward relations, and by its fidelity in thought and act to the supreme behest, "and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." And number 3, and this is something I'm personally grappling with: who is responsible for the rioting in Huwara? The individuals who did it, or the community that raised them? Some argue that it is a small minority of fringe individuals who are responsible. They point out that there are extremists in every group, that these people do not represent the Jewish community or values at all, and they bear full responsibility for their wrongful, heinous actions. Others argue that what happened was the product of the community and education in wherever they got their education, and that they need to look at how the culture could have produced people who did such terrible things. And yes, there's anger, but anger should never lead to that. So I want to ask you, what do you think? Should it be the individuals who bear responsibility for their actions, or does the community have accountability for the type of education that could possibly lead to such a horrible thing? Regardless of your answer to that question, if you're Jewish, if you're a Zionist, I want you to know one thing: these rioters do not represent you.